Last week, Mike showed the new request originated feature. We talked about it during the meeting and then reviewed it again on Thursday. And I think it's good if not merged. We'll see. I'm not sure what we said about YesSql, but I believe Mike had some questions. And today, 11:14. Do we have demos? The demos. We'll have topics for sure. Surprise topics. This thing doesn't want to stay here. Topics, status. Okay, that's okay. It's not that bad. So home here. What do we have since last week? We have a PR. And we have this thing that was merged, make upgrade to MailKit fully backward compatible. So there was a change probably, and then it was not backward compatible. So they are making it backward compatible with defining the default port or detecting the port if it's TLS or not. Okay, based on the port. Good. Offshoot core, I need to update it. What do we have since last week? 777 register two-factor authentication claims provider service. Okay, as a user claims provider. Okay, so it was missing. Fix Monaco issues. We merged the pull request from Spiros. We did some JavaScript updates before. So fixing Monaco, that's good. Initialize logger for YesSql to enable logging, because YesSql has a property where you can pass a logger such that it will log the SQL commands it's executing. And here Mike is adding an instance of the logger to the YesSql configuration, so it can use it. And by default, it will log in debug mode, I believe. But then you can configure using the YesSql string. The only thing that is sad here is that maybe some documentation you have been going to mention how to change the things and how to enable it or disable it. But I believe now that if we run in debug, we should see the SQL queries. Cleanup workflow activities. It's like Mike remodels the kitchen and says he cleaned the kitchen. Now you remodel the kitchen. You didn't clean anything. Why not? Okay. Test.Sdk. I have no idea what these things contain. I'm not, or maybe it's the integration. I don't even know if it's the integration with Visual Studio. I have no idea what this thing does. What breaks if we remove this line? Because I know you are using xUnit. I know we are using xUnit integration in Visual Studio. I have no idea what this package contains. Visual Studio Test Platform. Why is it called Microsoft.NET Test SDK? Thank you. Someone asked the same question. I believe I already asked it, but I forgot. Yeah, you see, it just works, still works. I'm still not sure. I'm sure we have to try it. Remove the dependency and try to run the test again in Visual Studio and without Visual Studio. Because of the test SDK. So if I take Parlot, test, test, it's there. I'm confused. Ah. So it's updated. And Pim extensions, minor performance update for HtmlContentBuilderExtensions. What is this? Perfect, yeah. So this way there is no allocation. Oh, you made an append hyphen. Interesting. I think I remember what I meant last time, actually. Interesting. I like it. That's good. HTML classify. I think we said yeah, it's fine to call it, but we might be able to just say, no, we don't have to call it, but we are not sure that name doesn't contain things that won't work with HTML classifying. Okay, so we have to call HTML classify. If these were technical names and we can ensure what they contain, we might just say just write it this way because it doesn't need to be HTML classified. It's a technical name that's compatible with HTML names or class names. Append hyphen. So yeah, the issue here is that this thing is creating a new string, it's allocating, and calling the three parts doesn't allocate anything. So append separated value. Beautiful. Separated values. So you take an I list. So this is a list of values. Or value. Okay, must be something that was existing before. Okay, all good, perfect. MailKit and MimiKit update. Analyzers. This I understand what it is. For xUnit APIs, update the analyzers, which will probably say, oh, you can't use assert.true equals true. You need to call assert.true. Update Azure extension estimate core configuration secrets. I don't know what it does. Update Jint. I know what it does. Log a message every time Redis connection multiplexer is created. Yeah, so we did some trace analysis or memory dump analysis last week with Mike to understand his deployment issues. And we figured that to be sure when all these connection multiplexer were created, because we should have a single one per connection string, to be sure that we only have one that is created, or we have more, we should have some more logging. And here Mike is adding some logging. Factories count.
On that, by the way, John
Okay.
Theory is suspecting multiple restart. Like the app is restarting and it keeps creating it over and over and over.
Oh, that will explain. So what we were seeing is that in the dumps, we were seeing multiple instances of connection multiplexer. But after looking at the code, we understood that, well, at first we were scared that the code was wrong, but no, actually the code is very well done. It's a static concurrent dictionary of factories which are holding the connection multiplexers, but and indexed by the connection string. So because it's static, all the tenants will share the same connection multiplexer as long as they use the same Redis connection string, which is exactly what we want. So ideally a single connection multiplexer. So the code is good. But if you say application restart, you mean the web app restart?
I think so.
But
well, it has to if this makes sense because it's static, right?
But if the web app is restarted, then the thing should be garbage collecting.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to still dig in there and see what's going on if I can make sense of it.
And when a memory dump is executed, the garbage collector is always called. So that's weird, still weird. So we still see some instances. Okay. So we have some logging now to detect when it's created or not. That should help. Have you enabled this one?
Not yet.
Oh, no, yeah, so logger, the logger is this one. Yeah, so if you configure the Redis database factory logger, and you say always log, like, how do you say that? Debug. Well, you can change and log to say always log that at the current level. Then we should be able to see if it's created multiple times. Yeah, I'm not sure this is necessary because if you log all the creations, you can look in the log to see how many of them there are. By the way, when you want something like this, like the number of something, that's a meter. There is an API in .NET to count things and to report them. It's different than logging. It's diagnostics, meter, it's telemetry. But it's called the meter. Then you can just say add one, remove one, and the counter will update itself, and it will be compatible with .NET counter, so we can track the values. So it's perfect. And I believe we can even connect to the meters dynamically. So if you have, remember when we installed .NET Dump, you could have .NET counters, and then we could connect to the app and see the number of instances dynamically. What's actually the meter counter or live. That will be interesting. Update Azure Identity 1.10.4. I think there is a security patch for this one. .NET 8 update. When was that? This morning, because it was released this morning. So, oh yes, I remember we merged .NET 8 support, so now it's using the RTM version. As the default one. Blobs and. There is also an update. Well, I don't have time to update for 7 and 6 because we still target 7 and 6. So soon we'll have to make a decision on what frameworks we want to support. I don't think there is a reason to support 7 because there is 8 now. And the question is, do we support 6 because there is 8? We'll see. So far, it's supported. Okay, questions? That's this one. Demos, topics. Mike, what's the topics of the day?
If you want to talk about YesSql a little bit, we can.
Okay.
See if we can take some of these changes.
Or explain the issues that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
So there are a few pull requests actually. Everything is red. Oh, that's you. Also, you broke my PR?
Yes, don't worry about that. I'm trying to update it to .NET 8 instead of 7.
Okay. No. Why? Be careful.
Because
what are you doing?
Aren't you?
No.
You dropped .6.
Oh, I did.
And switched it to .7.
Oh, I did.
So we're gonna skip .7. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, skip .7.
Are we?
I mean, is there a point to support 7 and not 8?
Yes. Let me think. Okay, I will rephrase the question to you. and you might have an answer because I know not lots of answers. What is the reason to support net 8 and not net 7?
The main thing for me is the serializing, the performance gain.
No, I don't agree then. Okay, another one.
That's mainly it, because serializer, it's used a lot here and it's important.
No, so let me explain then. I think you're wrong. Well, I know you're wrong. So this is a library. Okay, so this target frameworks is used in the web apps, in the test and whatever, but mostly for the library itself. When you set a TFM for a library, you set the minimum version of the framework that you support. It doesn't mean that you don't support above. It means the minimum that you require. So by saying the net 8 instead of the net 7, the only answer I would have accepted for that is I want to use APIs that are available only in the net 8 and not in the net 7. In which case, we could have asked the question, why not support the two of them then, net 7 and net 8, and have some if-def, like to say, if it's on net 7, use this API, if it's on a net 8, use this API, okay? If you just say it's for perf, we don't care, it doesn't matter, because if your application targets the net 8, your application, then we can reference YesSql that requires the net 7 minimum, and then the compiler, the framework, everything will use the net 8 because your application says, I run on the net 8. So we can target a library on .NET 7 or .NET Standard 2.0 or .NET 6 and still have an application targeting the .NET 8 that uses all the performance gains from the runtime for the .NET 8. Okay, so here, when I moved from the .NET 6 to the .NET 7, it's only because the JSON node API is available in the .NET 7 and not in the .NET 6. Then moving to 8 here doesn't add anything. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So maybe just have support 7 and 8.
Again,
or just for this purposes, let's just do 7.
Yes, just 7. We will add 8 only when we want to use something that is only available in 8. And there is nothing here in the code that we write that is only available in 8. If everything we use is available in 6 or 7 or 5 or whatever, we should use the smallest version that we can use. When your application like Portrait Core targets the .NET 8, it will point to YesSql. It says, oh, I support the .NET 7 and above. So it will say, okay, I'm fine then. And it will be the perf of the .NET 8, even though YesSql says, I target the .NET 7. If YesSql targeted 7 and 8, then the app will pick the build that is for 8 because the app will target 8. And it knows that there is an API that it can take advantage of. Oh, if I refresh now, I'm sure it will be fixed. That's how it works now. Okay, so yeah. And if you just change that and it's still passing all the tests and everything, that means it's perfect. It works. Unless there was.
Is there a reason not to merge it? It's been sitting
yes,
there. I just was wondering.
Yes. The reason is that it's a breaking change. So this thing is gone. The serialization format is different, so I'm worried we should release a major version with that. Oh, yeah. So this one also can target .NET 7. So this one, for instance, it's totally fine to target 7 and 8, even though it doesn't help at all. But that will say, oh, let me try to run the benchmarks on, the test on 7 and on 8, just to be sure that it works in both runtimes. That will be why we will target the two of them. But it doesn't matter. We can just target. You see here, like what I was doing. Test.6, Test.7, because there might be a runtime incompatibility with .NET 7 or .NET 8 or whatever. So here it's fine to keep .NET 7 and .NET 8 just to be sure. Why not? Or maybe even .NET 6. Did I remove it before? I'm not sure. Yeah, so if we support .NET 7 minimum, we can only target here 7 and also 8 if we want to test it on 8. I'm waiting to click the refresh here. So here we could have 7 and 8 now. But yeah.
Do you want me to make it to 8 at 8 or no?
Honestly, you don't have to. No, just leave 7 because this way we won't have to, sure. Because it won't work because the test don't install .NET 8 right now, and the base images for GitHub Actions don't have .NET 8, I believe, today because it's too new. In a few weeks, .NET 8 will be available in GitHub Actions. Today it's not the case. I believe that's why it broke the build, because I don't see any change on the YAML file for the test. Yeah, so we could merge it, but it's scary because what version number do we put on them?
You want to release it as a major version?
And then so okay, that's a discussion. I think we could. Yeah, it's so technically it's a breaking chain because we also changed the TFM. So we have to release it as a major version, right? Because we can't say it's a patch version because it's not even the same TFM. Anyone who targets .NET 6 today will be broken because we don't support .NET 6 anymore, right?
Well, it might be good with the other PR with
also
converting a lot of things to the Async. Maybe it makes sense.
And the other PR could also be then a major version. It is because it's breaking, right?
Well, it's not breaking. It's just adding a functionality with warnings, but
it's not breaking
because we didn't remove our existing code. So existing
let's talk
code
about
should still.
Yeah. So this one we can ship as a major. The other one, so the other one you made, which is much bigger, is about adding async everywhere where there was no async. And it made sense. So let's look at the API of this file. Changed since last review. Example, session extensions. Now I need to find a better example. iSession is better. So iSession. So what you did is there used to be a save method, which was not async, and now you made it async. Why? Because in the save implementation, if I look here, the session. The save implementation, it used to be all synchronous code, get state, okay. It's adding an object to a collection, it's removing a thing from a collection, manipulating collections. And here, this one, get next ID, which was not async, is potentially doing some async on a database. So the gets next ID, I think I explained it last week. I think so, right? Is maybe I explained it during triage. It's getting the next available identifier for a document in a collection. And how it works is the store knows a range of IDs, like from 1 to 20. And if the latest object, latest document was 1, then get next ID will say, okay, now it's 2. And next one, oh, now it's 3. But when we reach 20, which is the range that the store knows, it will say, okay, I don't have any more available IDs for this store instance. So it will ask the database to release or reserve or acquire another range from 21 to 40. And then the get next ID will do a database call. So if we look into the implementation of the DB block ID generator, you see, for instance, no, that's the thing. It will do an actual, so it's hiding a lot of code here. Block size, this is creating the tables. And then at some point, get next ID, this is this one, which was synchronous before. It will do the things in a synchronous way, like using the synchronous connection API. But since you change that to be all async, then it has to bubble up to all the callers, including the save. So before, the save was completely synchronous, but was doing database calls. And that could lead to blocking threads. And then because you block threads and it's a finite resource, then you could have thread starvation and block your app completely. So that's why you are trying to fix here, to prevent any blocking thread, such that we don't even get a thread starvation ever. So that's the idea. So that's why the API has to change to be all async. It has some perf impact for the common cases where there were no database access and everything was synchronous. But at least it will never fail your app. That's the idea. So all these changes here, and then if we look at a sample app here, even the creation of the tables. So why were the creation of the tables and indexes and everything were they synchronous? It's because these methods here, they are usually called in configuration. So there is a single thread at app startup that needs to update them, and there was no need to make them asynchronous. But in the case of Orchard, if we push the limits, we can say that the creation of a tenant is dynamic during a request. So if you do synchronous stuff, synchronous database, then you will block the thread, and then while you are setting up a tenant, you can't serve anything else. So that's why you also made them async. You made everything async. Some other changes here. So this one, for instance, is interesting because I don't know how you realized that. Maybe did you have an analyzer that told you to use await using here? Because
no.
Okay, interesting. So this thing here. So I know why, but what was your thought about why did you decide to put await there?
Well, first of all, our documentation shows to use it, but we're not using it. But
Okay.
One thing I couldn't understand is that when you use flush async, you can't use await. And that is, I wasn't able to understand. So like, if you look at some of the tests.
Okay, so I just wanted to focus on that first. I will look at that after. So here, await is interesting here because you can write today using var session, create session. Create session is completely synchronous. It's just creating an object. So this is creating a session object. Okay, and this object, when you call using things, it will just invoke the dispose method on it when the block is done. So here, using session, it's doing some queries, and here it will call dispose on the session. The difference with await here, because we do await using, it will invoke the dispose async method. So instead of doing session and dispose at that point, I should zoom, right? So instead of doing session the dispose, where was I? Here at that point. Oh, I'm lost.
I think it was better before. Yeah, you don't need to zoom.
No, I don't know because I have a small screen, so let me know. Okay, like before.
I think.
Okay, so now it will do a dispose async because we call await, which is better because if there is anything to do asynchronously during the dispose of the session, then it won't block. So it's always better to call await here. So that's great actually, because I didn't think about doing that here. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter because It's just reads. There is no transaction because it's just reads. There is no updates. There is no, there is a connection that is open. So in theory, though, the disposal of the session should close the connection. But again, closing the connection is just releasing it should not be async. We can call the async one, but in this case, it won't matter. But that's always better to call await if we can. So that's why I was asking, how did you find about the await? So that's good, because I was surprised that it was not there. Now you ask for flush async. Okay, what's your question? Is flush async?
Well, if you look at like the core tests, go to like jump to line 400.
It's loading.
Yeah, it's a lot of changes.
Oh, and but you see all these saves here. Now it feels weird because it's await session save async, which literally does nothing on the database. It's just marking an object as to be saved. The only thing it can do is every 20 calls to save async, it will do a database call. 20 being the default range. If you do lots of writes, you could say, oh, let me change the range to 100 because I know my store will need to do lots of writes. So I don't want to be super chatty with the database. You can reserve like 100 or 1000 if you want. In Orchard, we do mostly reads, so we never call save async. So await save async, and then you say flush async. What is the flush? I know what it does. I know what it does. I think I remember.
Yeah, so you see that line, that line 409. See how it does flush? Because of that, you can't await the session. So like 399, line 399, I'm not using await there because admin.
Oh, awesome. No, I don't agree. Why?
I couldn't explain it. That's why I left it alone.
So that's a bug then. So like that may be a bug that you found, because the difference between await and non-await here is calling dispose async instead of dispose. Okay, at the end of the block here. So if you remove the using and the await using, and you just say create session, and here you say session.dispose async and you await it, then you should have the same bug if you say it doesn't work with that. What flush async does, it's just commit the transaction, or maybe just execute all the queries that are currently pending because of the save async. In the current transaction. Yep. And then, the goal is to execute the queries that are pending. And then here it will do another one to be saved, and calling dispose should not save this object. We should only see Bill Gates and not Steve Ballmer. Is that what the test is doing? I hope so. And we should have 0. Oh no, yes, we have 0 because it executed the queries. But here there is no await session.save. What's the word? Save to what? Save database? Commit what?
Save changes async.
Save changes async. Save changes async says commit transaction. If you don't call it, it will revert the transaction. So anything that will be sent to the database at that point will be reverted on dispose. So if you say that calling await is breaking the test, I think there is a bug.
I'm gonna trigger it again just so we can be sure. But that's the reason why.
When you say trigger, you will change the PR and ask GitHub to run the test?
Yep, because I can't run it locally.
Why?
How would you run them? I don't have connection. Do they all run on only YesSql?
No, I should show you how to. Well, YesSql, they run on SQLite.
I'm sorry, not YesSql, SQLite. I meant, yeah.
SQLite, they all run on SQLite. You can also use SQL Server, PostgreSQL, whatever you want. And it's super easy because if you look, so core test is a base class. So you never run core test actually. In Visual Studio, you select one of the classes that inherit from core test, like MySQL, PostgreSQL Server, or SQLite, and you run the method on these classes. Like if you want to run this one on SQLite, you click on SQLite. This one doesn't have the method, but in Visual Studio, it will show up available because it will inherit from core test, and you run the one from SQLite locally, so you don't have to install anything. Now, if you want to fix a bug that is specific to SQL Server, you click on the class, and at the top, I show the command for Docker to install the instance that will work for the test. Well, maybe not this one, but
so like if I want to run SQLite, I would go to SQLite test and just run the test for that class.
Yep.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that will be much easier for you to fix the bugs instead of pushing and waiting.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So and if you take PostgreSQL, so for SQL it doesn't show up because there is a SQL 2019, SQL 2017. I don't. Oh, but you didn't change this file, that's why I don't see them here. But if you take PostgreSQL, this one will have it. So if I show the full file here, you see Docker run -name. If you take this command and you run it, so I have Docker for Windows installed using Docker for Linux. So if I'm not sure I have Docker for Windows installed, but if you have Docker for Windows installed, you just run the command and then you have PostgreSQL running locally. You can run the test. Okay. Again, by right-clicking on the PostgreSQL class and running a test there. That's how I do that. Much faster than asking GitHub to run them. So yeah, so we'll look into the flush bug later, but this PR I think is good because it will help. It has some impact on performance, but it won't be visible at the rate we use that. We can optimize later by skipping some async path using the awaited pattern. Yeah, this one is good, but yeah, it's not breaking because you just put obsolete on the existing interfaces.
I mean, it could break someone if they're using their own implementation of our interfaces, then it would break them. But that's
technically
very,
it is, it is not, how do you say, binary breaking, but it is breaking the source code, yeah. So, but we could ship it as part of a 4.0, a fourth version of YesSql with Newton-Soft.Json and everything, and then be done with that. And it could be part also of the next version of Orchard. That's totally fine because that's what we do. I don't expect people using Orchard to have their own implementations of this interface.
Agreed.
They have bigger issues otherwise. Okay, looks good. So yeah, we need to fix the test. I think there is one SQL Server that doesn't work. You remove some rollbacks. I like to have these rollbacks work or understand why they don't work because they work for everything by SQL Server. Because in this PR, you added some rollbacks on my request because I saw they were the commit but not the rollback, and it started to fail sometimes. Disposing the session, if you don't call save changes, will roll back the transaction. So that might not be necessary to call it, and maybe that's the issue because it was already rolled back by the session. Interesting. We have to check that. Yeah, and this await with flush async, we need to understand why it doesn't work. But otherwise, no, we will be able to match that. It's good. One thing we could discuss is should a save async return a task or a value task? If most of the time it's not actually async, we should return a value task, but it would have to be proven by benchmarks, and we won't do that. So,
what's the difference between value task and a task?
Value task is better is more optimized when you don't actually have async code inside the call inside here. So save async right now is only doing async every 20 calls.
Correct.
So we should do a value task because it won't trigger the same context switching code, a more optimized one, but it has like 2 fields instead of 1, so it will create more fields than the task. So yeah, there are pros and cons of the 2 of them. So it's usually when we know it's not async that we should, or there is no async code actually invoked, that we should return value task. But it's always safe to say, okay, just task, because we don't know if it's faster or not. So that's why we say like benchmark, and if it's faster with value task, use value task. If it's not, then just use task. In Fluid, for instance, it's mostly using value task because when we evaluate every tag, like if, for, and everything, it's just synchronous code. It's very rare that there is some async code that is evaluated like a query inside a for each block or for block. There is never like this, so we always use value task everywhere. But it could be async, so we use async value task because some of it could be async. But most of the implementations of the write async are actually synchronous.
I mean, as you said, that save async only calls that method once every 20.
Every 20 times, yeah.
Yeah. So does it make sense here to change it?
We could make it value tasks but we are not sure, right? We didn't benchmark it. Could try to run a benchmark to see the differences, like just change the value task to task in the interface and in the method and run a benchmark, because we have some benchmarks, and see if there is a difference, at least with SQLite. I'm not sure you will measure anything because there is a database call. When there is a database call, it's 1,000 times lower than whatever gain you could get from a value task to a task. So I believe we should just keep task and then. Yeah, just keep task, it's safe. All good, okay.
So should we also soon be releasing, if we merge these two, be releasing a new major version of YesSql?
Yeah, when it's merged, we can release. But I want the answers, flush async and rollback transaction.
Yeah. Well, the rollback, you can probably try.
I can do that next, and I will look at that. Okay, so that was the topics. That's always interesting to understand those things. That's knowledge
There's
that you can use.
Another PR in Orchard, and that one is around the also asynchronous for the definition manager, which is a lot of changes. Yeah, that one more time, one more down. There you go. Because the content definition manager also locks, and that is widely used by.
Yeah, this
Orchard.
one is. Yeah, so historically, the content definition manager was completely synchronous. But since we have the document manager, some of it became asynchronous internally, so it's blocking now. It's the same reason for value task, because that thing never goes to the database. Well, never goes to, let me click on Orchard Core, do a dot. Content type definition manager. Content type definition manager. Do we have that? Content type definition. What's the name of the
I think it's Content Definition Manager.
Content definition manager? Load. Load content definition. Yeah, that's actually, no, it should be. This one should be async. We could have gone around that by doing an eager load of the content type definition record by saying there is a method to load them. This one is async. And all the other ones, they just grab the thing from the dictionary and they never load it. If it's not loaded, they throw an exception saying, no, this should have been loaded when the application was started. And I believe we could still do that. Because I don't see the document manager here. Is there a document manager? Am I in the correct page?
We also have a way to initialize asynchronously. So it might make sense to load it, but every time you change the definition, you have to reload it.
No, I don't agree. Why do we have to reload it?
Or just, you mean update it in memory and then save it and then just keep the...
Yeah. The save can be async also. What is get identifier async? Content by definition. Content definitions. Oh, we have the store. Okay, so this one is async. Load definition, load content definition record. All the management ones have to be. No, they don't have to be async. We just need to call another one that is like save to disk or something like that. That will be even faster, actually. So if we can do batch changes of the parts and everything. Yeah. Oh, I see. Oh no. Oh wow. Yeah, that will improve startup and everything. So here, imagine, and let me see if I'm right or wrong. So imagine on startup, we use the content definition manager to create a type. What do we do to create a type? Like create, how do we create a type?
We use the alter type.
Yeah.
Alter.
And then apply and everything.
Type.
So alter type definition. Update content definition record. Okay, so update content definition. So every time we do change a part, change a type, we do update content definition record. Okay. So if I look at what it does, it loads it. It's not loaded, and it says save content definition async. So sync versus sync over async. So this is blocking. Every time we update a part, delete a part, add a part. And then has to be rebuilt. That's okay. So it saves it every time. It's kind of bad because if you create multiple parts or multiple types, then it will call that thing every time. So during startup, during setup, we do that a lot of times. So maybe we should just expose that publicly and say, save content definition record. Okay. Save changes such that we do all the things we want. And then we say, okay, now let's save it to the database or to the store, the file or whatever it is once. And then all these things, they can be made synchronous because they would just change the in-memory representation. And when we say save async, then it will store the document. That would be much better. This is for the cache, okay. Save content definition async, yeah. So this thing should be async and it should be a, yeah, and yeah. That would be better. And then you would not have to change all these things. I lost it. Because it's going everywhere, yeah. Instead of changing everything, we should just then have to call save record async when we do a change, after we do all the changes. Like this one, you don't have to change. Every get thing, you will not have to change. It's just the update that will have to change. And maybe it's handled automatically by whatever migrations or whatever, but no, in this case, that's okay to call it.
Are you saying to add like save changes async method to the definition manager?
Yeah. The thing that the alter is calling. So you keep this one not async, but there is another method once all the alterations and deletions have been done that you say save changes. I'm sure we'll change the name, but today it's called that's the update, whatever we see at the end, right? This thing here, which is private, with the public, like update content definition record. And it has to be async. And the other methods don't call it.
Well, that would also be a breaking change too, because now everyone has to, everyone has to use it.
Yep. This could
also,
be
John Thierry mentioned about using a document manager. So he's going to make changes to it. So I'll also leave him, unless you want to. I'll leave a suggestion that you recommended using store method.
We'll watch the meeting. We'll get it soon out, and then we will watch it and understand everything. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to call that every time. It's super slow, even today. And it's sync over async, like that's super bad. One thing that could be done automatically to not break anyone would be to make, if this is scoped, no, this is not scoped, right? Maybe it is scoped. It's not scoped, but we could have had something that is scoped that we resolve now, that we can't resolve it here. Or we can make it scoped and separate the state. We can't make it scoped because people have expectations already. Like detect that something was changed during the request and then persist the changes automatically when the request
I'm not sure.
is done.
Can we use, because we use it in migrations. So I think migrations are, I'm not sure if we can use the scoped. I'm not positive. Because we alter these contact types in migrations. So how do we register migrations? That's probably the question. But.
No, it's fine, because we if the scope is released, then you save the database, so the next scope will be able to read it again. I think that's okay.
Oh yeah, migrations are scoped as well, so yeah, that should work.
But at least we need to change the way it's done. Everything that says load should not be called load. Let's not change it for now, but
yeah, I mean it's always been confusing. We have load and then we have get. I mean, I understand they do two different things, but
there is a get also.
Yeah, there's get types definitions, and then there's load type definitions. Yeah, I just didn't want to, break the changes. I thought I would just make the same methods, and then if we need to clean it up.
And I'm wondering if Jean-Thierry added them to distinguish between the read-only and the mutable ones. I don't think so. But here, at least the delete that saves the thing every time you call delete. So if you delete 5 parts, there is 5 times the record that is serialized and stored in the database. Super slow. That's crazy. Yeah. So imagine on startup on migrations, when I say startup, when you create a tenant, like we have 100 types with so many parts. Every time it's storing it in database, the setup will be 10 times faster if we do the change.
Agreed. And we're blocking that many times too right now. So we're updating and blocking.
So what we could do to prevent people from making mistakes or forgetting to call save or whatever is an analyzer. So with the code changes, we could try to look for anywhere in the code that calls delete by definition, alter things. And then if you have a method call like this, but you don't actually call anywhere in the method or in the class, or in the method actually, the save changes, then we could display a warning saying, hey, you didn't call save changes here. So that's
And I'm wondering if we should just create a different manager with different interface. Just for this will be backward compatible, and then moving forward we can't do that.
Because it's based on the names. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, you're right. Because here there are no names. It's just the record itself that needs to be updated. The manager itself can be completely different. I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a way to do that. Make this thing obsolete and use another one. But keep this one. So if you use this one, well, it won't break, but you should use the other one.
Right.
Okay, that's a good idea. It's a good idea, but I like this one.
I think you like the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I get it, right? But I think if we change it, you know, the migration from one version to another will require a lot more work. But I mean, so like maybe call a new one called Content Type Definition Manager. We can't even content type because it's a part and type. Yeah.
Okay, good discussions to have. We'll need to do some changes here. That will be better for everything. Okay, that's good. I like it. Yeah, that's normal. Okay, let's see what Jantiri has to say. Maybe we missed something.
Last thing we probably should discuss or just kind of talk about. Should we drop support for .NET 6 in Orchard or no?
I like to recall the arguments we had last year when we dropped .NET 3, .NET 5. So we have .NET 8, which is an LTS. We could drop .NET 6 because it's been 2 years now. People were supposed to use .NET 7, and if they didn't upgrade to .NET 7, it's because they wanted to stay on an LTS. So maybe we could say now, okay, now just use .NET 8, knowing that in Orchard there is no breaking change. You just have to update the framework. So I think it's fine because people are not blocked to .NET 6. People who are blocked to .NET 6 was just for political reasons, like we want to use an LTS, long-term service release. Now there is .NET 8, which is a long-term service release, so they can just migrate to .NET 8. And there is nothing breaking, all their code will work. And if they are using an Orchard itself is the same code for 8 and 6. So there won't be any change in Orchard either. So I believe we could drop 6.
Because I think one of the benefits of dropping 6 is that we can, like some of the new methods, like throw exception if not null, right, or something like that.
Correct.
Those are .7 plus.
You can simplify it, or use the new APIs without having to do if else compilation.
I wouldn't want to use the if.
I believe we could. Let's find an issue or a discussion and ask for people if they would disagree with that. And if nobody complains, well, first, if someone complains, we'll tell them you're wrong. Okay. And then when everyone agrees that they don't have to complain, then we'll just use 8. Okay. Right. I will see people who say, no, I need to keep 6, and I will say why, and then they will learn that they don't have to. That's usually that. Like I see people who try to change YesSql to say, let's target .NET 8. No, it's just that you didn't understand the difference between library and application TFL because it's hard. No, but and myself often I update that. So it's just about understanding why we do that. And then they are like, okay, I thought I would be blocked, but I'm not. Okay, good. I thought it would be better, but it's not. Okay, I don't know. So, yep. Okay, discussion, and then we can change it. So give it a week for people to react, to watch the meeting and react on discussion, and then we can drop 6 and 7. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike. See you on Thursday. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.